Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. As part of the Dodgers Daily Network, my voice is finally back. I'm feeling quite a bit better than I was last week. I think I had COVID, but hey, we made it through it. We didn't miss any work. We didn't miss any shows. We are back, Austin. Super excited. We have a ton to talk about. We're going to dive right into the Cody Bellinger talk. We're going to talk about Ronan Kopp getting protected. Eduardo Quintero and Patrick Copen were awarded organizational prospects of the year, that kind of deal. So we got a lot to talk about, and we also want to talk about anything and everything the chat wants to talk about as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun, exciting show. Casey, first off, great to be able to see you, be able to interact with you, and talk about the news that is Dodgers baseball. A lot of rumors flying around, and also a definitive move that the Dodgers made. So all of that stuff, important to talk about.
Okay, man, let's dive right into it. I'm going to put this point blank. And I do have some contrarian in me, but I don't think that's this. I think this is just my experience with what happened a couple of years ago. I personally feel like Cody Bellinger, the reason why he did well when he got away from the Dodgers was because he needed new scenery. I just didn't think it was working between him and the Dodgers at the time. So I'm not all in for going and getting Cody Bellinger. I'm not nostalgic like that. I know some people are like they remember how good he was, and especially 2019, that kind of deal. I'm not like that. I'm more like, hey, the mutual parting ways was good for both sides, so why not continue to do that? That's kind of where I'm at. Plus, I think there's better options out there for the Dodgers. Prove me right or prove me wrong, whichever way you want to go. Doesn't make any difference to me.
Okay. With Cody Bellinger, this is the important thing that I think you are hitting on. What has to be important about a potential signing with Cody Bellinger is it has to help the Dodgers going forward, not be a nostalgic move because he's a former Dodger and perhaps is one of your former favorite players that used to be part of the Dodgers. Now, Cody Bellinger has been a good player over the past several years. Let's run through some of his numbers since he's been away from the Dodgers. Let's go particularly the past 3 years. That's the consistent numbers that I've been using to compare all these different outfielders. He has been a guy that has hit for average, a 281 average, a 338 on base percentage, and a 477 slugging. During the past 3 years, that's a 123 WRC plus. That is better than some of the outfield options that the Dodgers have had. And with Cody Bellinger, if you want to make an pro argument for him, he is somebody that can hit for a little bit of power. ISO just sub 200 over the past couple of years, but he doesn't strike out a whole lot. So if you're looking for a profile of a guy who doesn't necessarily strike out a whole lot, Cody Bellinger has turned into that type of player over the past several years. 8% walk percentage and about a 15% strikeout percentage with versatility defensively and the ability to be able to move around. That is the pro with Cody Bellinger, is you are looking for, especially if you're looking for a profile that can get on base, that doesn't strike out a whole lot, that can play a little bit of outfield and potentially even play a little bit of center field and move Teoscar to left, Andy Pages to right field. That is some of the upside with Cody Bellinger. Now let's talk a little bit of the downside, because you have to mention both, because you can't just say Cody Bellinger is this type of player, or he was good for the New York Yankees. He had this certain WRC plus with the Yankees or with the Cubs. And so he's going to turn into that type of player, because there are certain metrics that don't love the profile of Cody Bellinger or have some concerns about him going forward. And this has really to do with his slug and his power capability. I mentioned this a couple of times when talking about Cody Bellinger. His barrel percentage and his hard hit percentage are not really that good. 6.7% and a 34% hard hit percentage over the past 3 years. That it ranks towards the bottom of the available outfielders that are out there, which means that if he's not barreling the ball up, if he's not hitting the ball hard, that means the success that he has come at least in part to do with luck, or perhaps in part to do with the environment that he's surrounded by. This is evident by the fact that his weighted on base average, his WOBA of 346 over the past 3 years, is vastly higher than what it is expected to be at 321, meaning he has run into a little bit of luck as a player. And this is also evident, and I'm not the first one to be able to point this out, but if you look at his home and road splits, particularly last year when he was with the New York Yankees, 152 WRC plus in New York, outside of New York, 97. Which means that there could be something to the fact that Cody Bellinger, while yes, a very good player, could be impact, could be part of his success, could be there specifically because he is in an environment that is conducive to him, because he's gotten a little bit lucky. And perhaps you can use that as evidence to say that Cody Bellinger is not going to be the exact same player going forward as he was before. Again, what is important is not who Cody Bellinger has been in the past, but what is he going to be in the future?
It is, and if you look at these WRC pluses here, 125 with last year with the New York Yankees, 108 with the Cubs, 135 with the Cubs, all the way down to 83 in 2022, 47 in 2021. So my concern is if you go, of course, 2020 was shortened season. I don't really give a whole lot of credit to that. But really, I think what people are remembering is the 161 WRC plus in 2019. That's kind of, that was 6 years ago. And that was a lot of struggles ago in the Dodgers system. And then also, Austin, in that 2019 season, do you have the ability to break down like the last 2 months of that season? If I remember correctly, I could be wrong here, but it seemed like even in the last 2 months of that season, he fell a lot. I just remember like around the All-Star break, I was like, oh, he's going to win the MVP. And then it seemed like in the last 2 months of that season, it was not nearly as good. So I think you could add that to the cons to it. Again, I'm just giving you cons. You make up your own mind. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I'm not big on it. So I'm probably going to give more cons than I am pros. But have you got to that yet, Austin?
I'm just looking into his last 2 months right now, seeing if I can go ahead and update that. Yeah, he had the 161 WRC plus overall from August 1st until the end of the regular season. It was more of a 127 WRC plus. One thing that you're going to notice that really drove his value that year was the fact that he hit 40 something home runs, 47 home runs throughout in the 2019 season. Mm-hmm. If the underlying metrics suggest that his power isn't quite there, that means that his impact of value is not going to be the exact extreme that it was before. Now, you could say that it's still worth it because he does a lot of things that fit that the Dodgers need. He doesn't strike out a whole lot. He's versatile as a defender. He can go ahead and get those base hits. The question is, at what price point are you getting a Cody Bellinger? And I think this is the big question with Cody going forward, and whether or not the Dodgers are going to be seriously interested in signing him. Because I think, yes, they're, of course, keeping an eye out on Cody because he fits a lot of things well that the Dodgers are going to need. We'll get into the splits here in just a minute because that could be something that could be not quite what the Dodgers are looking for. But overall, as a player, he does a lot of things that fit the Dodgers, what they could be looking for as an outfielder. So they're, of course, going to keep an eye out him. The question is, at what price point in years are the Dodgers willing to go with Cody? And if it's anywhere near some of what the projections are, which some of the projections are 4 or 5, potentially 6 years for Cody Bellinger, that is a massive commitment for a guy that does have some underlying metrics that are red flags.
Go over that's one of the questions we have in here. And we're going to go over all the cons because I'm going to assume that I'm going to be in the very rare minority of Dodgers fans that are going to be as negative towards this situation as I am. And so we already have a comment. Go over the underlying metrics of Cody Bellinger. Kind of explain what they mean when you say underlying metrics and compare those to the actual production that he's given on the field and why there are some red flags to that.
Yes. Okay. So when you're talking about underlying metrics, you are specifically talking about stuff that is more batted ball data. So there is a difference between the actual results on the field results, which is stuff like batting average, on base percentage, WRC plus, slugging percentage. That is what actually happens on the field versus based off of the contact quality that you have, based on the exit velo, based off the launch angle, based off of a lot of different things. What that typically produces over this course of the long run. And when you're talking about signing a player like Cody Bellinger, you're talking about signing a player for a longer term deal, which means that you have to take into account what he's able to produce, both the results and what the expected results were, because oftentimes the expected results, how good the batted ball actually is predictive of what's going to happen in the future. And that is what's most important, is not what he did in New York, what he's going to do in LA if the Dodgers sign him. So that brings into question, what are the underlying metrics for Cody Bellinger. So we're going to use the past 3 seasons, 2023 to 2025 statistics.
Where would I get these so I could put them up on the board for the?
I have these on my spreadsheet. A lot of this stuff is found on Baseball Savant. I had to go through and actually calculate what the past 3 years combined were.
Do you have that I could put it up with? Could you send it to me?
I have the spreadsheet that is available. The link is in some of the past videos that I have.
Okay.
I can go ahead and share that in the comment. Actually, I don't know if I can,
and I'll put it up on the board for him.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share that with you after I go through the spiel of what I have. So then you can actually look at these numbers and compare them to some of the other outfielders as well in just a little bit. Let's go through his expected stats versus his actual stats 2023 to 2025. So the past 3 years, he's had a 281 batting average. His expected batting average was 257.
Oh, wow.
Pretty big difference between the two. His slugging percentage over the past three seasons was 477. His expected slugging percentage, 421. A difference of 56 points. His weighted on base average, which basically is a representation of on base percentage, except it weights home runs better than singles, was 346. His expected weighted on base average over the past 3 years was 321, a drop of 25 points, meaning the underlying data for Cody Bellinger is 25 points around worse than what the actual results were. So if you're predicting going forward with Cody Bellinger, understanding that he had a good season with much better numbers in Yankee Stadium, a very good, conducive, hitter-friendly environment, and the underlying metrics are already pointing to the fact that there could be some regression with the expected statistics, that is a worrying sign. You also combine that with the fact that, and this is really paired with the expected slug, as I mentioned earlier, the barrel percentage, how much is he able to barrel up the baseball, certain exit velo, certain launch angle combined, is less than 7%. You look at all of the free agent outfielders, and that is one of the worst among it's other outfielders.
What is again? Say that again.
It's 6.7 is his barrel percentage over the past 3 seasons, and his hard hit percentage is 34.3%. And the hard hit percentage, if you look at the free agent outfielders that I have, Tucker, Bellinger, Yastrzemski, Kepler, Bader, Mullins, Conforto, all of these different guys, it's the worst of the bunch. Yeah. And so what that is going to show is there is some underlying metrics that suggest that he might not be have been getting a little bit lucky over the past couple of years. Not that he's a bad player, not that he can't still be a good player or overperform what the expected numbers are, but those are a little bit worrisome to me.
Yeah. And you know what we call that in baseball, whenever it seems like every time you throw the bat at it, you get a base hit. He swings a magic wand is what it sounds like to me. Okay, and here's another aspect of the Cody Bellinger deal. What type of length do you think you'll have in the contract?
That's the big thing, and the massive question mark is because the projections out there are closer to a 5-year deal than they are a 2-year deal.
So what does that do to Zaire Hope, Josue Paula, Zach Earhard, James Tibbs III, Chris Newell, Ryan Ward, Eduardo Quintero, Kendall George, Mike Sirota? What does it do to that timeline when you're talking about a guy that has all these underlying metrics that let's say that 2 or 3 years from now, the underlying metrics actually level things out and he becomes that 230, 240 hitter. If the underlying metrics came through and he regressed to the mean as they would suggest he would, what do you think all of those underlying metrics would suggest his WRC plus would be consistently?
I think it's going to be if the underlying metrics bear out. I think so. In the past 3 seasons, he's had 2 really good seasons and 1 pretty good season. And the pretty good season was 2024. I think you're going to start to see a lot more seasons closer to 2024, meaning about closer to a 2-WAR type of player instead of a 4.5, 5-WAR type player like he has been in 23 and with Chicago and 25 with New York, which means I think you could see the WRC plus go to about 110 to 110, 105. Dip closer to 100 and potentially keep going south if the underlying metrics continue to go forward for that.
And then how would he grade out defensively? He would be a center fielder, you would assume, right?
Defensive, yeah, it would be That would probably be the role that he could do. He can play all over in the outfield, which I think is some of the good thing that he had the past couple of years defensively in center field. You look at defensive run saved, outs above average, field and run value, a little bit of a mix for him. Cody Bellinger right around league average as a defender out there. You look at some of the other positions like left field, he's actually graded out, especially last year, really well. 7 defensive run saves, 4 outs above average, 4 field and run value. Right field also he grades out really well. So he actually grades out really well, but more in the corners. So if you're okay with Cody Bellinger in a corner and Andy Pages in center field, I think that would be fine. I think he's a fine defensive player. And certainly there's a lot of metrics to be able to back up to say, there's still some good things about Cody Bellinger. I don't want this just to be a negative thing piling on about him. And what's unique about Cody Bellinger, what's unique about Cody Bellinger is, one, it's going to cost a lot of money to be able to get him, but also he can hit lefties really well as a left-handed bat, and he can field defense. Over the past 3 seasons, 151 WRC plus against left-handed pitching for Cody Bellinger. Really good. 113 versus right-handed pitching, and that's where there can be a little bit of a conversation as to whether that 113 WRC plus over the past 3 years with right-handed pitching, with the underlying metrics that he has, is the correct fit for the length of contract it's going to require to acquire somebody of Cody Bellinger's status.
I just don't think, whenever I look at the underlying metrics and I look at he's liable to, if it goes back to what he's predicted to be in terms of the underlying metrics, the predictive measures, which aren't always accurate. I mean, there are some guys that defeat these all the time. Again, that's what we call guys that swing a magic wand, right? I mean, it's just like some guys can hit piss rockets all over the place and you're out, and then other guys can just swing a magic wand and it seems like it goes over the shortstop's head on a duck fart every time. So hey, there's nothing to say that he has to regress back to the mean of what the underlying metrics would suggest. But if he does, especially if you put him in center field, you're looking at an average defender and an average offensive player and a 5-year contract. Those 3 don't mix together right there. That's oil and water. So if you're gonna have an average defender, average offensive player, that suggests like a 1-year contract, not a 5-year contract. That's where I think I'm getting off on this.
Yeah, I think it would be, for me, I would feel a lot more comfortable and perhaps see it as the right fit, especially if you don't have to, with a lot of the other trades, potentially trade away some of the guys that you're really excited about. If it was more of a 2-year contract. We talked a lot about Stephen Kwan and Brendan Donovan being potential guys that the Dodgers could bring in, and they kind of fit in that timeline 2 years because you mentioned earlier in the show, there's a lot of exciting outfielder prospects where if you bring in Cody Bellinger to a longer-term contract, now you have Cody Bellinger locked up long-term. You also have Andy Pages, who's going to be around the team for a while, and Teoscar Hernandez, who's got 2 years plus a club option left. You're talking about the outfield being pretty much completely blocked out if you were to bring in a guy like a Cody Bellinger to a longer term deal. So if you're able to make this a little bit more of a shorter term deal, which could be a little where, and I think we're both on the same page. Like he fills a lot of different holes for a shorter term deal that I really like. And I think Jay, who's been in the comment section trying to defend Cody Bellinger, doing a really good job. I think there, especially with his approach, which has gotten better, especially once he went to Chicago. He did a lot of things to be able to improve his game, and credit to him. It did not look good when the Dodgers decided to move off of Cody Bellinger, decided to go out to Chicago and really made a difference and an impact for himself. With him entering free agency at his age 30 season now, this likely is the time that he's going to want to cash in. And so it's not my expectation for him to take a little bit more of a shorter deal. Although if he was willing to do that, especially with the 2-year type time frame, I think that would be something that I would be much more inclined to be able to do. Longer term deals, trying to find the best fit into the roster, as well as somebody that doesn't have the exact same concerns that I have Cody Bellinger long term. That type of long term concerns, which I think the expected stats might not bear out in the short term, but I think will eventually bear out in the long term, especially as you age and as some of your athleticism starts to decrease. I think this is going to be something where if you invest in him long term, that perhaps is going to be a little bit too risky. And let's not forget last season when a lot of Dodgers fans saw Teoscar Hernandez, somebody who was a Dodger, somebody who a lot of fans had a ton of nostalgia for as being somebody that the team should invest in, even though there was a little bit of worrisome stats with him, particularly when it came to his defense, and that his value had to come exclusively from his offense when the designated hitter position was already taken. We can't ignore the negatives that come from a particular player. We can say we like the positives better, but you have to look at the negatives when you are investing long-term into players that are aging and starting to get up there. It can't just be nostalgia-based.
I'm just kind of looking at this like buying a vehicle, you know? I mean, it's like, hey, I'm not saying I don't like the vehicle. I'm not saying I don't want it. I'm just saying I'm not going to go on a 6-year note to get it because it's so expensive, right? Hey, if I could figure out a way to make this vehicle be affordable enough to where I can have a monthly payment I can afford, and it can be in the 2-year period where I'm not paying $1 million in interest, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm buying this vehicle, but I'm not buying it at 6 years, or I'm not buying it at this price or whatever. Yeah. I'm not trying to say Bellinger's a bad player. I'm not even trying to say he's going to regress to the mean, although he is 30 years old, Austin, and I have done this research, and literally 31 years old is when things start to regress on average for players. That doesn't mean it does it for every player. That just means on an average, 31 years old is really where you start to see guys above that not really be consistently in the leaderboard of different parts of statistical categories of offense in baseball. So he's right at that age to where, yes, if you signed him for 5 years, you could get all 5 years out of him if you're lucky.
Yeah.
But odds would say when you look at the statistical underlying metrics, plus he's getting ready to enter that 30, 31, 32, you could start seeing regression after that 31, 32 years old. Anyways, there is just way, way, way too many red flags for me to go anything more than what the amount of years that you would go get Brendan Donovan or Stephen Kwan for, somebody like that.
Yeah, and just to let you guys know of some of the early projections for Cody Bellinger over this next year, which you have to think with Cody Bellinger, some of the projections are for like 5 years for $25 to $30 million per year. And this is going to be year one, where it's likely going to be around the same or probably get worse over the course of the next couple of years. Next year, in his age 30 season, projected to hit 267, 330, 450 with about a 115 WRC plus. That's about a 2.5 to 3 WAR type of player for Cody Bellinger. Is that a guy that you want to invest 5 years for potentially $30 million per year, when that could be probably one of the better numbers perhaps that he puts up, or at least that is around the average for the first couple of years before he potentially could see a little bit of a fall off? Those are the difficult questions that you have to answer when assessing Cody Bellinger. Don't just assess the name. Don't just assess what he's done in the past. Predict and try to evaluate what he's going to do in the future. That is the name of free agency. If you go based off of past results exclusively or past nostalgia, you will make mistakes.
You absolutely will. And again, not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to tell you where I'm at and the reasons why. I'm not saying I wouldn't take Cody Bellinger. I'm saying I wouldn't take him at the price. And if I'm Cody Bellinger, like if I'm that guy at the car dealership, right? Okay, and I'm trying to tell him as a customer, I'm not paying $43,000 for a Kia Telluride, right? Yeah. And he goes, okay, well, good luck to you then, brother, right? Okay, and then he knows he can go right to the next customer and sell them $43,000. So if I'm Cody Bellinger right now, and I'm going, okay, it's cool to be with LA, that kind of deal. I've already done that. But why in the hell would I take 2 years from them when I can get 5 years from somebody else, right? I mean, why would you do that? I mean, so I don't anticipate Cody Bellinger like shaving off. Like, I mean, it's one thing like if you say, well, you don't want to pay 43. How much will you pay? I'll pay 42. Okay, well, you can negotiate that, right? Okay. But if you say, okay, well, it's $43,000 for this Kia Telluride, and then, but I don't want to pay that. Well, how much do you want to pay? 32 grand. Okay, see ya. It was nice talking to you, right? Yeah. You can't. I mean, you're too far apart. I just think you're too far apart at this point. So we have a comment from Showtime LA and Jay saying here, Bellinger's whiff rates and strikeout rates are still very strong. I would also say, will that actually continue to be the case in the Dodgers system when he's not getting the type of instruction in this system like he didn't the time before that he was getting in the Chicago Cubs, and instead you're dealing with an entirely different organizational philosophy. You're dealing with an entirely different swing structure, one that did not work for Cody Bellinger. So that would be an argument against for me, because I think part of that is because he got away from the way the Dodgers do things. And that's not to say the Dodgers aren't elite at what they do. That's just to say it doesn't always work for every single person in every situation. So let's say this. We have a comment from Showtime LA, Byron Buxton. Byron Buxton is one of the players that Showtime LA, Buxton and Johan Duran. So talk about those two and why they would be good pickups for the Dodgers. We know they're good players. We know they're explosive, but are they the right fit?
Okay, so I'm going to guess that he's talking about Jarren Duran instead of Johan Duran. Johan Duran is the closer that got traded to the Phillies.
I'm still stuck on that in my brain. I can't get
I'm going to assume that the Dodgers are not going to trade, or the Phillies are not going to trade Johan Duran to the Dodgers. Would be my guess. But when we're talking about those two players, they have their own unique strengths and abilities. And I think that makes what makes this outfield pursuit for the Dodgers really fascinating and fun, because there's different arguments for each one of these guys. With Cody Bellinger, there absolutely is arguments that you can make. And Jay was making a good point about the strikeouts and the whiffs that he has. He did a lot of work, and this is a credit to the Chicago Cubs and their system. And this was continued in New York. He changed a lot of things in his swing. When he was in LA, the last 2 seasons he was awful as a hitter, and his strikeout percentage was in the 26-27%. He cut that by 10% when he went to Chicago, and they helped fix a lot of different things, and he started to whiff a lot less, and he did a really good job. I think you mentioned a good point of whether that would continue within the Dodger system. Now, to Showtime LA, there's a couple of different options that are floating out there quite a bit, one of which is Byron Buxton, and Buxton has been a phenomenal player when he has been with the Minnesota Twins. Over the past 3 seasons for Byron Buxton, which he's averaged about 104 games over the past 3 seasons, this most recent season being one of which he played a decent amount, I think close to 120 or so games. 254, 320, 513 slugging percentage for Byron Buxton, a 127 WRC plus for him. The underlying metrics as far as the batted ball data suggest that is accurate to the type of player that he is. He mashes against left-handed pitching, 151 WRC plus versus lefties, 124 versus righties over the past 3 seasons. He is very much somebody, if you want an outfielder that has a ton of upside, and especially one that is able to hit for a lot of power, that is who Byron Buxton is. Near 260 isolated power over the past 3 seasons is insane. And barrel percentage towards the best in all of baseball. Hard hit percentage, really solid. Pulls the ball in the air a ton, doesn't hit ground balls. Defensively, still has been a solid player, and actually played more in center field than what I remember looking at the numbers this past season. So he would be a pure center fielder. Here's where some of the questions of where some of the people could have a little bit of an issue with Jarren Duran or Byron Buxton. And this is where you can have a little bit of debate of how much you actually weigh this. There absolutely is swing and miss concerns with Byron Buxton and with Jarren Duran.
I was going to say, is Buxton kind of like a really good version of Luis Robert Jr.?
A little bit. I think that's a fair enough comparison because I mean, I can look at some of the numbers in there. I think it's actually pretty close, especially with the walks and strikeouts. With Byron Buxton, about a 7.5 walk percentage over the past 3 years. Strikeout percentage is about 28% for Byron Buxton the past 3 years. So what you would be getting with Byron Buxton is you would be getting a lot of upside on a very reasonable deal if you were to trade for him. $15 million per year for his age 32, 33, 34 seasons. He's a guy that can hit for a lot of different power. He would play center field, which would force Pages to right, Teoscar to left field.
Or vice versa,
but what you would be or vice versa, whatever you want to do. What you would be betting on is the power, which there's no indication that the power is going to fall off besides from he's getting older. You're betting on the power to be able to sustain and be there. You're counting on him to be healthy. You're betting on the upside with Byron Buxton. And you are also saying that you are okay with adding some more swing and miss to this lineup because he's going to swing and miss quite a bit. Jarren Duran, who has some swing and miss concern.
I mean, that's a lot of swing and miss. 28%. That's James Outman territory there.
It's not quite there because James Outland would be more in the 33,
Right.
34%.
But it's getting up there.
It's starting to get up there to where if he has another injury, which starts to decrease and diminish some of his power, you could see some of his values start to decrease. That's going to be the big thing with Byron Buxton.
Yeah.
Just based off his past history is you're just going to deal with an injury history with Buxton, and there's going to be some swing and miss. Jaron Duran doesn't have the same level of swing and miss. It's more 23.5%, which is still fairly high, but it's not to the extreme upside with that Byron Buxton has. Although Jaron Duran, if you want to target somebody that particularly can hit against right-handed pitchers, look to the past 3 seasons. Jaron Duran, 14 points higher in WRC plus versus right-handed pitching than Byron Buxton.
Wow. I'm just in that spot there. It's just my personal preference. I'm looking for fit. I'm looking for bat to ball. I'm looking for on base. I'm looking for elite defense. I'm looking for the right length of contract to allow these young stud outfielders they let these 5 or 6 outfielders fight for the 2 or 3 spots that are going to be available here in 2 or 3 years, and let's see which part of the cream rises to the top there. That's just kind of where I'm at there. So kind of give us of course, you got Stephen Kwan, Brendan Donovan, you got guys like that too. So in your mind, after doing all this, we've talked about it a lot, whenever you put the timeline of the contract with the younger outfielders in the system, and eventually we're going to get into the younger outfielders that we're talking about and talk about them. We're going to talk tonight about Ronan Kopp, who got protected, and then also Tarik Copen and Eduardo Quintero, who were labeled the organizational prospects of the year. Do you know what publication that was by, Austin?
I don't know exactly what publication that was by. I don't know if it was MLB Pipeline or one of those different types of publications. I just saw that was out there, and it was sweet. Eduardo Quintero, Cope. Absolutely. I will go ahead and retweet that. I don't even know what it exactly was.
We're going to try to work in the prospect talking to these shows based on something relevant as far as the news of that day and why are we talking about these guys, that kind of deal, like we did the Rule 5 last time. So I say that to say that's who we're going to get into there. We'll get into eventually all those outfielders we've been talking about so much lately. But which outfielder for you don't take fit into the equation? Because that's going to be a personal preference for everybody. We're never going to be able to solve that argument because one person wants the more explosive player like the Byron Buxton. I would prefer the bat-to-ball guy like the Stephen Kwan, okay? That's personal preference. Take all that out. Which player is actually the best player that you can get for the cheapest, that makes the most sense financially for the Dodgers?
Okay, so they changed up the question a little bit because best player without the cheapest would probably be Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker would be the best player that you could go out and get. However, he is the most expensive player that you could go out and get. Cody Bellinger, similarly, is a good player. However, at 5 years, that is an expensive deal. And you're starting to go down the list to where if you go past those two, some of the other guys, Trent Grisham just recently accepted his qualifying offer. He's not a free agent anymore. The other guys that are outfielders at part of the mix on the free agency, I'm not overly high on. I think Mike Yastrzemski is a little bit of a unique fit if you're not counting on somebody like a Ryan Ward to be part of the equation, but I don't think he's a complete player and the best bargain that you could get to be able to make the team as good as possible. I think he's a 1-year deal, a bargain type player, but not a ultra savior to the offense. I think he just fits in uniquely well with the mix. Harrison Bader has real struggles offensively for his 2023 to 2024 numbers and some of the underlying metrics. And then Cedric Mullins, another free agent, has some worrying concerns with its underlying metrics, which brings you to the trade targets. And that's where it is, where the trade targets are. And what makes it unique is some of the guys like a Stephen Kwan, who would be a good potential bargain type get, except for the fact that Cleveland seems to be notorious for being extremely tough negotiators, which means that it might not be something where it is a good bet or you might have to give up a little bit more, even though it's only 2 years of Stephen Kwan. For Jaron Duran, it's 3 years for him. For Byron Buxton, it's 3 years for him with really good upside for both of those, which means that perhaps some of the best bets as far as bargains and potentially could be good fits onto this roster probably would be the two outfielders or / utility player for the St. Louis Cardinals, that being Lars Nootbaar and that being Brandon Donovan, even though Brandon Donovan is still going to be an expensive asset to be able to get. If you're looking for production combined with, and this is adding a little bit of fit into there, but I think it ultimately has to be a little bit of fit in there, combined with the cost that it's going to be able to take to be able to acquire each one of those guys. Those two would probably be, even though they have been dealing with some injuries, probably the most cost effective with some upside available type of guys that are going to be out there, because some of the other guys are going to be extraordinarily expensive, either years wise or investment wise, to be able to get.
So if you just go to the store and you say, I don't have anything in mind that I'm going to buy, I'm going to buy the best deal that I can find, like the thing that I think is the most valuable for the cheapest price, which one is out of all those people?
Out of all those people, man, I would, as far as the best deal, it would probably be Nootbaar, only because he has injury at likely going to miss a little bit of time at the beginning of the season, and some of the underlying metrics for Lars Nootbaar are actually pretty positive. He's kind of a little bit inverse of what Cody Bellinger is, especially with his expected weighted on base average versus weighted on base average. His weighted on base average over the past 3 years, 325, but his expected is 343. 18 points higher. I think there could be, and especially because he hits right-handed pitching and he does a lot of things like doesn't chase, walks a whole lot.
Who are you talking about?
Lars Nootbaar, I think could be a solid bargain bit, especially because the Cardinals are going a little bit of a new direction. He's got 2 years and is going to miss a little bit of time. I think there's some upside, and I believe he has some past history with Team Japan, if I'm not mistaken, in the World Baseball Classic. So I think there's already some relationships perhaps built in with some of the chemistry on the roster. I think he would be, out of all the different options, the best bargain bet. But you might be betting on a little bit more limited upside as opposed to some of the other guys that you would be getting.
Right. So let's say Lars Nootbaar is the best bargain bin basement deal. I said that in our last show. I could not agree with you more. I think the best overall deal when you put fit, when you put what the Dodgers actually need with their lineup, with the way the contract's going to work out in terms of the runway for the young guys in your system to have a chance to come up based on, there's a little bit of overpay probably going to be to it. I think that guy probably is Steven Kwan. I think the guy that would be the most worth an overpay would probably be Kyle Tucker. That's how I would put those three tiers. Would you disagree with any of that?
Not necessarily. Kyle Tucker would definitely be an overpay in years and dollar amount to be able to go out and get him, but he is an extraordinary player, and out of all of these different outfielders has the best numbers out of all of them, and the expected data backs all of that up. He would not move anybody. He would be another corner outfielder. And that's what we're talking about with a lot of these different guys. The guys that are available that you're going to get, that are going to be true impact type bats, except for potentially a Byron Buxton, which is why I think there's a lot of call for people to bring in a Byron Buxton or maybe even a Cody Bellinger, is because they can play a little bit more center field and be that impact quality type players. But I think price wise, I think that a lot of that is appropriate. I think Brendan Donovan fits into a lot of this similar mix, probably going to be price-wise similar-ish to more of a Steven Kwan as opposed to a Lars Nootbaar, be a little bit more expensive than them, but he has a little bit better numbers than what Lars Nootbaar has over the past couple of seasons, and has a little bit of a unique fit into this roster if you take into account the players that are currently part of the Los Angeles Dodgers roster. So it's so fascinating because I don't think there's a complete wrong answer in this mix. I think there's a lot of good answers that the Dodgers could turn to, and there is a very good argument for so many of these different answers, which means that all of the opinions that are different from either you or mine as to which one you actually prefer, it's totally fine and appropriate to be able to have.
That even goes to even if the Dodgers just dud out and just say, you know what, I'm exhausted. We've got all these people in the offseason. It didn't really even work out last year anyways. We did good at the trade deadline a couple years ago with Flaherty and Edmund and that kind of deal. You know what? The hell with it. We're just going to go with Alex Call and Kike Hernandez and give Ryan Ward some run at it and See if we can't get one of these other young outfielders ready to go and maybe give them a shot, give Hae-Sung Kim a shot and Alex Freeland. That aspect of it, too, is a no-lose situation for me, too, because if you do that, now you've made those guys more tradable. That was the first thing I said about Ryan Ward. One of the biggest reasons why I think they put him on the 40-man is it makes him more tradable. Whereas you're getting ready to have, like Jose Ramos, free agent. Mm-hmm. Well, he's going to sign with another team. He is an extremely talented player. Now, is he a good player? At times. But is he a toolsy, talented player? Yes. So he can go somewhere else and easily be an everyday outfielder. No, I mean, from a skill perspective, be an upper echelon outfielder. So is he a good player at this moment? Is he a major league player? No. But the Dodgers got absolutely not anything out of him. He's going to sign as a free agent and go somewhere else. They did not. They felt like Ryan Ward had at least enough value to put him on the 40-man to give them this offseason to see if we find somebody else or a couple of guys to play some outfield and Ward ends up being blocked, since he's on the 40-man, he's tradable now, right? He has more valuable in a trade scenario. I said that from the very beginning, and at least we get – so when I say tradable, do I mean like are we going to swap Ryan Ward for like an upper echelon out like Stephen Kwan? No. But you are going to trade him for maybe a Brian Hudson, right, or a Justin Chambers or somebody like that, and whoever that person is, Austin, is better than who you're going to get back for Jose Ramos, which is – right? I mean, so that I think that has a lot to do with the Ryan Ward deal. Or it gives you the option, hey, we don't like any of the contract setups. We don't like our options. We don't like what we're seeing in the free agency or trade market. We're just going to sit on it, and we're going to let Ryan Ward play, and we're going to see if the dude can actually hit like he has been in AAA, and we're going to go with it that way. It gave them a two-way go. I love it.
Yeah, it gave them options to be able to do different things with Ryan Ward because of his situation. And this is a testament to how good Ryan Ward was in the 2025 season. Really good season for Ryan Ward, expected to enter minor league free agency and be destined like a lot of the other players that entered minor league free agency where they get to sign with any other club. The Dodgers saw how valuable Ryan Ward was, and they can turn him into some sort of trade. We just saw this a couple of days ago with Robinson Ortiz, who was added to the roster and then traded for Tyler Goff of the Seattle Mariners, who as pitcher missed all of 2025 in low A, very likely is going to return back in 2026 either with Ontario or Great Lakes and start to make his comeback. And Robinson Ortiz, amazing story for him to be able to come back, and Dodgers were able to use the value that they saw with him being able to jump up 3 levels after only pitching 22 2/3 innings over the past 4 seasons, 5 years if you want to include 2020 where there's no minor league baseball season. They were able to turn him into somebody and continue to reinvest into this farm system. That's a testament to how good Robinson Ortiz is. That's a testament to how good the system is at being able to help train and develop these guys. And that very well could be the case for Ryan Ward. And what my hope would be whatever the scenario is, that Ryan Ward actually gets some sort of opportunity somewhere, whether that's with the Dodgers, if they look at all the options and they are not comfortable with meeting any of the price points, either year-wise or prospect-wise for any of the outfielders, and they think Ryan Ward can match some of the production with him and Alex Call being a platoon. Alex Call, a good hitter against left-handed pitching, and Ryan Ward, a plus 1,000 OPS against right-handed pitching last year. Alex Call better versus lefties, Ryan Ward better versus righties. You can see potentially some sort of platoon right there. And if they think that's going to be better, then they give him an opportunity to be able to fight for a roster spot in LA. Otherwise, find him an opportunity to be able to go and trade him somewhere where he's actually going to get an opportunity. I think that's the biggest thing with you and I. We just don't want him to sit in AAA forever. And if the Dodgers can turn him into a valuable trade piece because of how good he has been and because the system has helped develop him, then utilize him in some sort of trade piece or try to find some sort of way to be able to integrate him to the roster.
So it kind of goes back to it's easier to find a job when you have a job, right? Because you don't have to take that job in front of you. You're not desperate, right? So I think that's what Ward does for this organization. Hey, Cleveland, we don't have to take Stephen Kwan. It's not that big of a deal. Hey, we don't have to take Brendan Donovan. Hey, we don't have to go get Byron Buxton. Hey, we got this dude named Ryan Ward and Alex Call. We're perfectly fine with what we got, okay? I mean, we had a crap ass left field situation last year till Kike Hernandez took over, right? I mean, Michael Conforto was not a good player whatsoever. And guess what we did, boys and gals? We won the World Series for the second time in a row, first time in a quarter of a century with our outfield situation last year. And we think it's even better with Alex Call, Kike Hernandez, and Ryan Ward this year. So you know what? Hey, we got a job. I don't need a job. Now, I would rather have this job maybe, but only if it works to my satisfaction. I think that's the backup plan that Ryan Ward does give the Dodgers. And then I would ask them, of course, they're not going to watch and they don't give a crap what I think, but if they do go get a Lars Nootbaar or a Steven Kwan or a Byron Buxton or not a Johan Duran, a Jarren Duran,
yeah.
If they do go get an outfielder, at that point, immediately trade Ryan Ward for whoever you can get out of him and give him his chance. That was what I would be. That's what I would ask.
Yep, he was destined to hit minor league free agency, and that comes with significant financial upgrades as opposed to being on the 40-man roster stuck in Oklahoma City. If you're going to add him to your 40-man roster, especially because he's deserving of an opportunity, either find way for him to earn an opportunity on the Dodgers roster or find some sort of trade piece to where he can fight for a opportunity on the roster. Whatever is going to be best for the Dodgers, I think, is the path that they need to pursue.
Okay, we have a really interesting question here from Jay. This is for you, Austin. Jim Bowden proposing Skubal for Emmett Sheehan, Justin Robleski, plus one of Hope or DePaula. What say you?
That is a fascinating question because Skubal would be an upgrade over Emmett Sheehan. Skubal is one of the best pitchers. He's one of the top 2 to 3 pitchers in the game of baseball. Now, Skubal only has 1 year of team control left, so you'd just be getting him for 1 year. And this could be something where the Dodgers, especially if they're interested in signing him to a more of a long-term type of deal, they could enter a negotiation period where they potentially could lock him up, Tarik Skubal up long term. And if you're talking about some of the contract with the pitchers, I know with a Tyler Glass now, I believe after this year, I believe he only has 2 guaranteed years plus maybe a club option, I believe is what his contract is set up. So he's starting to get towards some of the back years of his deal. And when you're talking about this situation, Skubal would be an upgrade over an Emmett Sheehan. In the case of Justin Robleski, and this is one of the reasons as when we'll talk about Ronan Kopp, which we will talk about Ronan Kopp because we have to talk about Ronan Kopp being added to the roster situation. Justin Robleski only has 1 more option year down to the minor league level, which means that if you want to option him back down to Oklahoma City, you can do that in 2026. You cannot do that in 2027, which means if he's that type of profile of player, perhaps you take advantage while he still has a lot of value for the team and be able to utilize him in the trade piece.
Point.
And when we're talking about Josue DePaula or Zaire Hope, there is a lot of talented outfielders as part of your system. Both of them are incredibly gifted, incredibly talented. But I think Tarik Skubal, the type of player that he is and the value that he's able to provide, because he's a better pitcher than Emmett Sheehan, although Emmett Sheehan is a fabulous, phenomenal type of player. I think this could be some type of deal that the system could absorb, especially if you enter in a negotiation period where you could potentially extend a Skubal like you did when you traded for Tyler Glass now and were able to extend him long term. Am I expecting this? Probably not. I think the Tigers probably wait a little bit, but certainly they're in a little bit of a pickle because of where they are at and what their financial commitments are or lack to go long-term type of commitments. I think that type of deal would probably be fair and appropriate to be able to do. It would be extraordinarily expensive, but it helps makes your team better in 2026, I should say. And I don't think it makes the massive dent that it appears to make, especially if you sign Skubal long term.
Yeah, but what would that long term look like?
The long term would be, I mean, and that's the big thing is
the next contract's going to be how many years?
Oh, dude, yeah, and that's the
what
big
I'm
thing.
saying. Dodgers aren't going to want to do that.
Yes, and that's the big question is if you get Tarik Skubal and if you want to sign him to some sort of deal, you're talking about one of the mega deal contracts for a starting pitcher, which can work if you go for the superstar type of players, now with signing starting pitching to long-term deals, that is something where you have to overinvest and overpay to be able to get them. And for the superstar players, they typically go out and perform and outperform some of the regression curve that they have. The biggest thing, though, is are they going to be able to stay healthy long-term? If their health declines, that's when you see the contract really starts to not pay off long term. But Skubal is going to require one of, if not the highest free agent contract a starting pitcher has received in the game of baseball. I don't think starting pitching is the massive need that you have.
It's not a need at all.
It is not a need at all, especially with some of the guys that are coming back and with Roki Sasaki potentially being in the starting rotation, to where you could have a little bit of reservation. But a trade like that could potentially take this starting rotation and put it just over the top and be absolutely, it would be absolutely insane what the starting pitcher would have. So fun to be able to dream about. I think that's probably a fair proposal and something definitely that the Dodgers could absorb. I'm not willing to go there quite yet until some of the other needs are met.
So I like to go referee my games. I like to go to the movies with my wife. We like to go to ball games together. We like to go on day trips to Wichita to watch. We'll go see like the world's largest teepee and just drive over there 3 hours one way and just have a hell of a good time just driving around, right? Whatever that may be. I like to spend time with my dogs. I like to go to my OSU games. Okay, man. I mean, I'm pretty simple. To be honest with you, I could be a multi-billionaire and I'm not going to travel to Europe. I'm going to do the same damn things, all right? I'm going to go out to the same farm. I'm going to go to the same OSU games. My wife and I are going to go on the same day trips. We might be taking a helicopter instead of a car and going a little bit further, but it's going to be the same concept, right? Because we got to get back home to our dogs at that night. So I say all that nonsense to say, whether I'm whether I have $200 billion or $300 billion in the bank, at some point my quality of life stops getting better because I can only spend a certain amount of money, correct? And so is it worth it for me to use that money? Is it worth it to me to get more money, or is it versus taking away the things that I enjoy doing in life, or is what I'm doing in life good enough? So what I'm trying to tell you is, at some point when you have the starting pitching that the Dodgers have, I mean, do you need more? I mean, do you need to be trading away? Now, if it's an outfielder or if it's a second baseman or if it was this time last year or 2 years ago, I'm like, oh, hell yeah. But, I mean, do you really need Tarik Skubal is kind of what I'm saying. And when you already have Roki Sasaki, you got all these guys coming back. You got Shohei Ohtani. You got Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow's locked down. You got all these guys. I mean, do you really need Tarik Skubal and to give up Emmett Sheehan? I mean, you just won the World Series, so I mean, is $300 billion going to make your life better than $100 billion? Is it really going to make that big of a difference?
I don't know. Tarik Skubal is a really good pitcher, and this is the thing that a lot of people are going to point to is past years the Dodgers felt like they had enough depth in the starting pitching, especially the star talent depth. You never can seem to have enough pitching, and this seemed to be the best case scenario starting pitchers by far for the Dodgers with all of these guys healthy.
Yes.
And you relied upon some of these guys very extensively in the postseason if you want to add some of that depth while getting a star power player. And if you're already planning on pursuing this guy in free agency, which is not to say that the Dodgers are going to pursue Tarik Skubal once he becomes a free agent, but if they are, this could be a path to be able to jump ahead in line and try to give yourself the best chance to be able to bring him in and add another one of these best pitchers in the game of baseball to the staff and just make the starting pitching almost insurmountable for teams to be able to win. That helped them win during the postseason this year, and if you potentially could add to it, that could be something that the Dodgers could pursue, especially with how good Tarik Skubal is, because he is so good at pitching in the game of baseball.
How many years is he going to want? So it doesn't make any sense unless you're going to give him an extension. And what's the extension going to be? How many years is it going to be? 10 years?
Oh, very likely, probably.
That's where I go out. That's kind of back to the Bellinger deal. I'm not saying I don't want Tarik Skubal. Hey, I'd love him, right? I mean, hell yeah. You want to give me $300 billion? I ain't gonna turn it down, right? I mean, I'm not gonna do that. Okay. I mean, I'm not turning Tarik Skubal down, but I'm just saying for 10 years, I'm not there. I don't think that's a big enough need for the Dodgers to go the 10-year route, and I don't think the 1-year part of it is worth that package. I think it would be if you could extend it like you did Glasnow for 4 or 5 years and be done with it from there. But I think the fact that the extension would be 10 years, so you're either going to have to sign him for 10 or 1. There's no in between, right? And that's
yeah. Yeah, I think you're right with that, and especially if the Tigers were to trade Skubal, the Dodgers aren't the desperate team to acquire Skubal,
right,
which means that they are going to have their own particular price of what it's going to take to be able to go out and bring Skubal. I think there's a lot of other teams that are much more desperate than the Dodgers are at acquiring star talent, starting pitching, and especially with some of the needs that the Dodgers are still wanting to address, particularly in the outfield or a potential second baseman. I think they're going to prioritize upgrading the team from there and then being advantageous, understanding that their roster is still really solid right now, and that with signing a Tarik Skubal or trading for a Tarik Skubal, there's no guarantee that he's going to sign a contract extension with you.
100% agree. Okay, do you have anything else other as far as the hot stove talk that you wanted to get to before we get to our talk about Ronan Kopp and then Eduardo Quintero and Patrick Copen?
I think that's the most part of what it is right now. I believe, if I have this correct with some of the off-season schedule, is some of the owners' meetings are taking place right now in New York City. So there's stuff that is going to be happening. Winter meetings are going to be coming up fairly shortly. That is going to be happening the week of December 8th. The 8th through the 11th is going to be the winter meetings, which does include stuff like the draft lottery and the Rule 5 draft, which will be coming up, which today was a very important day for the Dodgers because they had to make a decision on which guys they wanted to protect from the Rule 5 draft. And with the Dodgers, they have still some needs that they're wanting to fulfill. We talk about outfield being a need that they want to fulfill, or second baseman, one of those two things. I include second baseman because Brendan Donovan could be part of the equation. And relief pitching is still part of the equation that they have. And you look at up and down the roster, there's not a lot of guys that they want to move off of. And so they decided to make a decision about their roster today because the Rule 5 draft is coming up, and they had to make a decision of who to protect. Yesterday on the show, I had the privilege of being able to go through 20 different guys in depth with some of their 2025 statistics.
Great job,
and
by the way.
all of them had reasons to why they should have been protected or why they should be taken in the Rule 5 draft coming up in the next couple of weeks. But the Dodgers decided to protect one particular player individually, and that was Ronan Kopp.
Yep. Let me get to you're not going to be able to hear this. You're going to be able to see it. I'm going to play you a clip of Dave Anderson, the AAA Oklahoma City Comets pitching coach, who was Ronan Kopp's pitching coach this year. You won't be able to hear it, Austin, but you heard it the other day. The crowd will be able to hear this. So here is David Anderson, AAA Oklahoma City pitching coach, talking about Ronan Kopp, who just got put on the 40-man a day to protect it right in front of the Rule 5.
It is a true plus slider versus both left and right. And, some of the things that he's bought into and we feel really confident that he understands now is the angle he creates out of hand. It's kind of the opposite of the Sammy Carlson effect, the low slot, the low vertical approach angle. He's leveraging the opposite. So, you've got about a 6'5" release height, and it looks like it's coming from the clouds. So we essentially scrap the thoughts of killing vert with the slider and lean into powering it downhill. Because the angle out of hand is going to take care of the visual of depth for the hitter, which allows him to throttle that thing in that 91, 93 range. It actually cracks me up because a lot of the boards we play at, and, OKC's does it. It tags fastball sometimes. He's gotten to the point now that he can feel when he gets too far around the ball, which is when you're going to see more of side spin come in. So there's going to be a little bit more depth, a little bit more sweep. and it's still a nasty pitch, but it doesn't look like it has the teeth, the visual, the power behind it. And he's started to really hone in. The other piece that helps him with is it eliminates the glove side pull and the arm side miss, because all he's thinking about is down angle. So it's like you're either downhill to the knees in zone or you're strike to ball below. And that allows him to play the north-south game with the fastball really well. He actually flashed a couple sub 1-4. We're not going to call it a slide step.
Nice.
It's a modified pickup. So it's essentially like a knee to knee. If he had a bar across the top of his knees, that's the height that the other one can go to. Once you hit that, it's go. A lot of the issue with that, not issue, but what we were working through with that was figuring out how much counter to preset so that he's already in the positions he needs to get to, that he gets in his load with the big leg kick where he has time to flip the pelvis, counter in. He's able to do that from the preset position. So now it's just up and go. And now all of a sudden, too, it eliminates any thought of the delivery. It's just up, down, forward. Simple.
Let me unmute this. There we go. So what you heard David Anderson there to say, AAA pitching coach Austin, was that the slider is big time, not to get all geeky like he did, but he got more downward movement to it. It changes shapes. And then also I think a big one is he added a kind of a pseudo slide step, and you want to be 1-3, 1-4 to the plate if you're a pitcher to give your catcher a chance, and he was a sub 1-4. I think that's a big one there. We talked about that the other night. Go ahead and dive into Ronan Kopp, and I will put some more video up here on the board. Dive into his statistics.
Okay, so I am very proud of Ronan Kopp and what he was able to do, because I think it's fair to say that 2024, after a great 2023 season with Great Lakes in which he posted a sub 3 ERA, his 2024 season very much so a disappointment by his standards. It was still a 4.17 ERA in 2024, but it came with a lot of walks, which still are very much part of the equation, but he didn't have the same level of degree of execution and success that he had previously. And so he entered into 2025 knowing that he needed to go out there and prove himself, especially with this Rule 5 draft protection coming up for him. And he started the season off with Tulsa, and he put up and absolutely executed 32 innings pitched, 2.53, I should say, ERA, 2.48 FIP, a 36.2 strikeout percentage. And let me put this into context for you. Here is the strikeout percentage leaderboard for the Texas League with pitchers with 30 innings pitched. Number 1, Ronan Kopp, 36.2%. Number 2 was a pitcher from the Cardinals organization at 35%. He was the best in the Texas League, 30 innings pitched, at getting strikeouts on a consistent basis with 36% strikeout percentage. The walk percentage was still very much high at about 15.9%, but you combine if you're getting the amount of swing and miss that Ronan Kopp is getting, you can deal with some of that. He gets a lot of swing and miss too. Then got promoted up to Oklahoma City, and here's his numbers in Oklahoma City in about 25 2/3 innings. It was a 4.56 ERA. However, that is 16% better than the league average Texas League or the Pacific Coast League pitcher, because the Pacific Coast League is a very hitter-friendly environment. 3.62 FIP, which is also 34% better than the league average Pacific Coast League pitcher. And the strikeout percentage, which was at 36.2% in the Texas League in AA and his 32 innings pitched there, remained 36% or near 36% at 35.7% once he made the jump to Oklahoma City. And his walk percentage still very much high at about a 17.5% for him. So there's still some aspects in execution of being able to throw strikes that are part of his game. But I think part of the reason why the Dodgers decided to protect him, because he was in AAA pitchers with at least 20 innings pitched, 97th percentile in strikeout percentage. Insane swing and miss stuff that you are getting from Ronan Kopp. And this is the really big key, that if you notice some of the patterns of what the Dodgers potentially needed, left-handed relievers with that can be optioned down to the minor leagues. I mentioned earlier that Justin Robleski only has one more option year. The only other left-handed pitcher within the system that can be optioned down to the minor leagues is Jack Dreyer. and Jack Dreyer threw 20 more innings than what he had previously throughout the seasons, which means there is a little bit of a lack of depth of left-handed relievers that are part of your system that can be optioned up and back down throughout the system. You combine that with the fact that Ronan Kopp made a ton of strides this past season, and upside-wise, because of the stuff that he has, it's as good of stuff as there is in the system, and gets as much swing and miss as there is in the system. His upside is so incredibly high, and with keeping him surrounded by some of the pitching coaches that are in this system that are going to continue to make improvements on the things that he did so well in 2025, if he could just get marginally better at some of the things that he struggled with, which you heard in the conversation with pitching coach Dave Anderson, who's worked a lot with Ronan Kopp, both in Great Lakes and then this past season in Oklahoma City. There are marginal things that they can help make a little bit better, and he's starting to make a little bit more improvements. And if he can start throwing a little bit more strikes and the walk percentage starts to dip just a little bit with the amount of swing and miss that he's able to get, and if he can execute just a little bit more, you're talking about a dangerous, lights out left-handed reliever. That is the upside with Ronan Kopp. Fits in really well, roster-wise fit with the left-handed reliever. I think that is something that the Dodgers recognized they needed. And when you have somebody that gets this amount of swing and miss, this is a guy that you want to protect.
1,000%. Let's move now to Ronan Kopp. Ronan Kopp and Eduardo Quintero were the baseball.
Patrick Copen.
Patrick Copen. What'd I say?
Ronan Kopp.
Patrick Copen. This is Patrick Copen. They were the MLB pipeline Dodgers prospects of the year. Patrick Copen, you see these goggles on his face? He has that because at the end of 2024, in his last start, he got hit with a comebacker right in the eye, and it broke his orbital bone, and he has no eyesight in his right eye. Yeah. So, I mean, they didn't know if he's ever going to pitch again. He said, screw that, I'm going to be pitching next year. Did not miss a start this year. I think he got the ball on the first day of the season this year after the August of 2024 losing his eyesight in his right eye. Incredible that he was able to do that. Then he made the jump up to AA really fast, and he just had a really, really, really nice year. Congratulations to Patrick Copen. He has the big frame. He's out of West Virginia. He went to Marshall and has continued to put on weight. He has the big fastball, the big slider, the big breaking stuff. Really, really excited. Of course, like everybody else, the execution piece, you got to improve that. But Patrick Copen is a super exciting young pitching prospect in the Dodgers system.
I mean, you mentioned it. It is the story that was Patrick Copen going out there and being able to come back a couple months after he got hit with that line drive to the face, which changed his life. It's no doubt that made a massive impact on his life. And it wasn't just that he was able to come back. I've told the story a lot before, but that would have been enough to see Patrick Copen go out there, and that would have been a cool story. With what he did in Great Lakes, it's under talked about just how good he was, especially when he was with the Loons this past season with his 10 appearances that he had, 2.25 ERA, 2.78 FIP. Get a load of this strikeout percentage for a guy who can't completely see because of what happened on that play. 38.5% strikeout percentage as a starter in Great Lakes. Unbelievable for Patrick Copen, well above league average for him in that compartment. Once he made the jump up to AA, still a little bit of a learning curve that he's making right there, but a 4.52 ERA, a 3.98 FIP. I think there's a lot of room for growth with Patrick Copen right there. And the swing and miss, especially with what he showcased with Great Lakes, was so phenomenal. And his stuff is really solid. But it is that fight that is inside of him that allowed him to be able to come back when most other people wouldn't have even stood a chance of being able to go back out there. Patrick Copen fought and was able to make it back out to the mound and have a lot of success. And that says so much about the character of Patrick Copen. And if he has that character to be able to overcome that particular challenge, he can overcome any challenge going forward.
1,000%. Congratulations, Eduardo Quintero, with all of the amazing outfielders in the system. He was awarded by MiLB Pipeline as one of the Dodgers prospects of the year. Eduardo Quintero tell you what, man, he made huge strides. In 2024, he was not great. It took him a while to get used to affiliated baseball. Once he did, you heard the other night, Dickie Joe Thon said he plays a beautiful outfield, is the way that he put it. And he has a hell of an arm. And another thing that Dickie Joe Thon brought up about Eduardo Quintero was that he has a big-time baseball IQ. So that's something. He's very smart, and so he understands the game. He's extremely fast. He had 1 million stolen bases. And as Dickie Joe Thon says, he plays a hell of an outfield. What's not to like about Eduardo Quintero?
He seemingly is, based off the numbers that he's putting up, which you can only look at the numbers that he's putting up and actually watch him play, the complete package, at least from what he put up this past season. And this is going to be combined with his numbers in Rancho and his numbers in Great Lakes. 81 games in Rancho, 32 games in Great Lakes, 293, 415, 508 is the triple slash line, a 153 WRC plus. He had 19 home runs, 47 stolen bases. He could be a little bit more of a power speed guy, but this also comes with incredible discipline, a 16.3 walk percentage with a 22.7 strikeout percentage. You combine the defense that he's able to produce right there and the tools that he is able to implement. Man, you're talking about a player that is starting to turn into potentially closer to a 5-tool type of player. That is the upside that you can see with Eduardo Quintero. He can play all the different outfield positions. He played a lot of center field this past year, 57 games, and Rancho 18 with Great Lakes. And when you're talking about Great Lakes, you're combining split playing time in center field with Kendall George, but he is very dynamic of what he's able to do in the outfield. He can draw a lot of walks. He can hit for power. He can run the base as well. He's a really good fielder, as the bench coach for the Great Lakes Loons testified to. Eduardo Quintero. We talked about Josue DePaula and Zaire Hope being some of the best guys in the system. There is good arguments to say Eduardo Quintero could be the best of the bunch.
Yeah, I agree. And Kendall George, I got a kick out of when Dickie Joe Thon said, I asked him if he gave Kendall George signals, or if he ever gave Kendall George the stop sign. He said, I didn't even give him signals. He goes, and sometimes he was so fast he would steal third, and I'd like, oh, dang, there's Kendall right there. He wouldn't even be ready for him to steal third. I thought that was hilarious. And Dickie Joe Thon's awesome.
He's a pleasure to be able to have on the show, and he is so right with that. Just with the way that Kendall George was able to play during the later part of the season, it was just you can go whenever you want, and vast majority of the time, he's going to go ahead, and especially the times when he stole third. I can't tell you how many times he stole third and then the catcher throws it into the outfield, and that's a run for the Loons because Kendall George just jogs on home for a home plate. Kendall George is dynamic as an outfielder, and he gets forgotten about when this crop of outfielders, but he needs to be talking about a ton based on what he did this past season.
Eduardo Quintero, what would you say is probably his weakest link? His arm, his speed, his average? I would say the potential, maybe not always to hit for high batting average. I think that trying to hit for average and power at the same time is a little bit tricky for him. I think he's still in that process. So I would have to combine those two. I would think the skill of trying to be a powerful but yet also good average. I think right now he can hit for high average or hit for power. Either one. I think he can do either one as well as he wants to. I think the process is trying to get him to do both. So I would say that. And then I would probably also have to say arm strength. Would that be your what you would say?
That's probably, and all of this is very nitpicking because of the success that he has. There's not a ton to nitpick, and maybe the strikeout percentage is a little bit high from what you would want from a player like him. Okay, I think that is something that he very much can work on, and it's not extreme to the level of what you would consider worrisome for a player like him. And I think
about a swing and miss,
a little bit the swing and miss, just because.
In 2024, I think it was a little higher, wasn't it?
2024, it actually was lower. It was a little bit higher this past season, and the swing and miss overall between the two stops was 22.7%. So you're very nitpicking, but that's very likely to increase as he gets throughout the upper levels. But we're also talking about somebody who's just 19 years old. That's what we have to remember. he had his age 19 season. He's going to enter into his age 20 season this upcoming year. He's 20 years old right now. So you have to give him a little bit of grace with everything.
Hey man, this has been a heck of a lot of fun. I always every single time. Hey, we're going to go on for like 45 minutes, And,
no, we're not going on for 45 minutes. We're going on for a couple hours.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. Whatever. That never, ever happens. So, okay, man, this has been a lot of fun for me. It is past my bedtime. I actually officiated tonight after. So I went to work at school, and then I went and officiated. And then when I got home and I officiated, I got on the air here with you. So yeah. I'm very tired. I am missing my beautiful bride of 26 years and my 2 pit bull babies. And no offense to you, Austin, but I love them a lot more. So it's time for me to get. And what are your final thoughts?
Oh, no, it's been a fun show. Congratulations to Ronan Kopp on being added to the roster. Congratulations to Q and Cope for being named and MLB Pipeline Dodgers Prospects of the Year. They absolutely well-deserved. Dodgers have a lot of decisions with their roster to be able to make. They made one step forward. For the guys who are not selected, it was not because of the talent that they have, and I'm looking forward to potentially them getting opportunities in the Rule 5 draft with another organization, because there's a lot of talent within this system that we're going to continue to cover here at Dodger Side. We're doing another show tomorrow, right?
Yes.
I think is what we have. I can do 8:30 Eastern. After that, I think 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific is going to be the time frame, CNAV, of when we're going to be having the show. And I think there's going to be some more interviews that you got coming up too, right?
I don't have them in the can yet, but I've got Capono Decker and Kevin LaChance and Sean Coyne and a couple of scouts and Eric Wedge. Eric Wedge just had a surgical procedure, probably going to be next month for him. Sean Coyne's wife just had a baby last Friday, so it's like, okay, how long should I wait till I ask him?
Yeah. You got to give him a little bit of space, man.
Yeah, a little bit there. Hey, by the way, before we get out of here, did you know that Dickie Thon was Puerto Rican? That blew my mind. Why did that blow my mind?
That blew me away when I saw that today. And
I'm sure my reaction was like, what a
no idea. I knew he speaks Spanish because I'm right over by the dugout and you would talk to some of the guys in Spanish, but I didn't know that he was Puerto Rican. That blew me away.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about his dad too. I mean,
I know.
Absolutely. Anyways, I'm sure I handled that like as poorly as I possibly could. But I was like so shocked. I was like, oh my god, one of my like Dickie Thon. You have to understand was like a household name here in Oklahoma. I mean, that's one of the Houston and Texas are one of the and the Texas Rangers are one of the 2 closest MLB. Affiliates to us, not affiliates, but MLB organizations. We get the Houston games all the time. I mean, I grew up, Dickie Thon was a name that I grew up hearing my entire life. And that just for some reason just was like, wow.
Didn't realize that.
Austin, great job, brother. We will talk to you tomorrow night.
Sounds good.
As always, you Dodgers dogs are the absolute best. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, it's a great day to be a Dodger.